After the fall of the Sudanese president and the 2021 coup, millions displaced and killed, why has Sudan become the world's forgotten war? Here's everything you need to know.
Once upon a time, we were called سلة الغذاء للعالم, which basically means we were the food basket of the world. So let me tell you about the humanitarian catastrophe, to say the least, that is going on in Sudan right now.
The end of Omar al-Bashir's 30-year rule and an uneasy transitional truce have led to a violent struggle for control. In October 2021, there was a coup orchestrated by the Sudanese armed forces and a powerful paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces. It was seen by many as a marriage of convenience with a shared goal of seizing power from civilians. This power struggle would eventually turn the two groups against each other, leading to war. In December 2022, military and civilian political figures signed the Framework Agreement, aiming to revitalize the political process for Sudan's transition to a civilian administration. The RSF was agreed to be merged with the SAF. Many cite this as the trigger for tensions between the two armed groups.
We begin with some breaking news coming in from Sudan, where we're getting reports of heavy gunfire across the capital.
After weeks of tensions in April 2023, clashes broke out in the capital Khartoum and other cities between the armed forces and the powerful paramilitary, with their two leaders, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, fighting for total control. Amnesty International accused Sudan's warring parties for committing widespread violations against civilians, including targeted killings, rape, abductions, random bombardments, random shelling, looting, and occupation of houses. More than 7.2 million people were displaced. 17.7 million people are food insecure, and 19 million children are out of school. Khartoum and nearby cities were not the only places where fights erupted.
The militia known as the RSF, that's been at war with the Sudanese army over the last 8 months, has just taken over the second largest city in Sudan, known as Medani. And this is home to millions of displaced Sudanese people who are seeking refuge from this war.
In West Darfur, an ethnic conflict reignited. Non-Arab tribes felt discriminated against by the Arab-dominated government of President Omar al-Bashir, and civilians who witnessed the war are killed. The United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission in Sudan condemned atrocities committed by both the SAF and the RSF, which is supported by Arab militias in Darfur. And that's not all. UNICEF said, quote, "In just a few days, 150,000 children have been displaced." There's also a need for humanitarian aid, which has not been met. Both the army and RSF have been accused of restricting access to aid and stealing it. Vehicles have been stolen, and offices and warehouses belonging to aid groups have been looted. Women feel helpless because they can't find menstrual products.
70 to 80% of the hospitals are no longer operating, and there is more than 7,000 cases of cholera in Sudan.
In at least 52 facilities in Khartoum, activists, civilians, and human rights lawyers say that the facilities are turned into one large prison for the remaining civilians, and that the people are being tortured, raped, and abducted. And there has been a new development marking a new phase in the conflict. Sudan's RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo met with pro-democracy politicians in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia this week. Their discussion focused on protecting civilian lives, facilitating humanitarian aid, and establishing mechanisms for a political end to the war. Yet many civilians are unhappy. Knowing all this, how has Sudan becoming the world's forgotten war?